everybody, to NAATP National 2024. I'll officially open our membership meeting, our annual membership meeting, and we're so glad that you made it here. My name is Jay Crossan, and I have the privilege of serving as the chair of the board of NAATP for the next 2 years. And I also, in my current role, I'm CEO of Cumberland Heights, and I am also a person in long-term recovery who benefited from quality treatment. And treatment works, and we're all here to affirm that and to give testament to that to all who still need the help, but also to learn how to do it just a little bit better for the next person that might come through our doors. I've got some announcements to go over. First, I want to thank all of our sponsors for supporting this. It costs a lot of money to put on a conference. It takes a lot of work to put on a conference, and it wouldn't be possible without all of our supporters. And I want to particularly point out our premium sponsors, Ashley, Cumberland Heights, Hazelden Betty Ford, and Sigmund Software. I want to remind everybody to visit our exhibitors. They too are an important source of revenue to put on the conference. And today the exhibit hall will be open from 8 to 4:30. And I want to remind everyone that there is an exhibitor appreciation lunch, which means it's a free lunch, that has been provided by the NAATP Board of Directors, and that will be in the exhibit hall. And then tomorrow the exhibit hall will be open from 8 to 2:30 p.m. Next, I wanted to introduce the staff of NAATP. I started on the board 8 years ago. I think my very first board meeting was May 8 years ago. And I think at the time we had one staff, maybe two. So maybe Katie was on the way. But really want to speak to the professionalism and the progress that Marvin has made in creating a staff for NAATP. If you can imagine just having Marvin try to do everything by himself. And so I want to acknowledge these people. They're not all in the room, so I won't make them raise their hands. They're out there working, keeping things running, some of them. But starting with Marvin Ventrell, our Chief Executive Officer, Katie Strand, our Chief Operating Officer, Annie Peters, the Force Executive Director, Mark Dunn, the Director of Public Policy, Zena Rodriguez, is who many of you know, but is a newer member of NAATP staff. Peter Thomas, who is the Director of Quality Assurance, and most of us know him for his work in ethics. Michael Mazin, who is also new to the NAATP staff. Luke Miller, Communications and Development Manager. Kayla Hewitt, Communications and Program Specialist, and Zane Strand, our Customer Service Coordinator. Just give them a loud applause. You know, having served on the Ethics Committee in my time on the board, and then next in Finance, and then currently on the Executive Committee, I can just tell you that the staff is always very, very well prepared. Everything is in order. They make it easy to be a board member. We are not doing the work, nor should we. And so what we get to do is provide some vision and guidance and help represent the field, not just our organizations, but the field at large. So if you're going through the conference and you see someone with this little black tag, they're a board member of NAATP. If there's something you want us to focus on, or a thank you that you want to say, reach out to them and share that with them. And then we can then in turn share that with the staff. That's how we get better. Last night was a wonderful way to start a conference. It was just an absolutely feel-good moment. As I sat there and I listened to the stories of people who have been in this field for generations, for decades, it just reminded me of how important the work that we do is, and how important the work that NAATP has, not only in the beginning, but also today. It made me go back and look at the history of the organization, which can be found, by the way, if you go to NAATP.org. There's a PDF about our first 30 years. And what I noticed when I was combing through those pages is that the reasons why NAATP was formed in 1978 are still many of the reasons that we are around today. That early group wanted to convene together to collaborate and share ideas about the best ways to provide treatment. Back in the early days, there were, not a lot of guidebooks or trainings on how to run a treatment center. What were the best practices? What were the most effective techniques to help others find a path of recovery? Also, very early on, the organization was involved in advocacy and public policy. In fact, I was surprised to learn that they actually hired a lobbyist 2 years, in 1980, 2 years after the organization was formed. So us having a voice in Washington with policymakers was very important in the early days, but as it is today. They also help set standards in the field. I'm a little ashamed. I've been a board member for 8 years and didn't know that we were involved with Joint Commission in trying to set accreditation standards for our field. But that is part of our rich history. We also started the first patient placement criteria, a task that we then, I think very humbly, turned over to ASAM for them to continue, and which continues today. Another important role both then and now was fighting stigma. If you think about the 70s, and we heard about it last night from John Curtis and Neil Scott, the early pioneers stepping forth and giving their voice to recovery, like Dick Van Dyke, and Buzz Aldrin and others, an important step for our organization to actually acknowledge the disease of addiction and to bring it out of the shadows of a stigmatized disease. Betty Ford, we heard talk of her last night as well. Those were really key, important moments in the 70s that led to some rapid growth in treatment centers. And so as they grew, NAATP grew, and it continues to grow today, as you will hear more about from Marvin. Some things that are just past the 30-year mark for NAATP that I think are important is that NAATP was very influential in helping get the Parity Act into law. We continue to be involved in a voice on parity because, as we all know, it's not enforced the way that it should be. But we have a voice in Washington, in the White House, to advocate for that. We're also involved with some other things you may not know about. One of which is kind of new, and I think you'll hear a little bit more about it, but surprisingly, Medicare does not have a benefit for residential treatment or, partial or IOP. And I remember distinctly being at this conference in D.C., not the last time, but before, and walking with Mark Dunn, our advocate in Washington, and I believe Kathy Palm and Scott Munson, and having a discussion about, how is it that Medicare doesn't even cover this disease? Well, if you think about when it was created in the mid-'60s, it just really wasn't out there. But that's a problem that we need to address, because what I like to think of is that, our seniors of today were the hippies in the 70s and the 60s. And so, they're retiring now, and some of those don't have a problem, but some do. And I know right now for them to go to treatment, they can just go to detox in a hospital, which is not enough. Or they can go to an outpatient provider, which often is not enough. And we need to cover that vast, rich experience of residential treatment. NAATP has also been at the forefront of ethics at a time when our field was just really being shown in a bad light and scrambling. We took a stand, and we've been involved in those discussions with Google and Legit Scripts, and the FTC, which is charged with enforcement for false advertisement. NAATP has been a leader, at least for me and my industry, in DEIB. They gave us a lot of trainings around diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. I don't know of another place in our field where you can go learn how to implement some of those things. And the DEIB is very important to NAATP. Just last year, we made it a permanent standing committee of the board. We also have one of our 5 awards to honor the work in the field. And so it was very good to see that. I've seen that 3 years now. So I'm always inspired by that. And there's always more for me to learn to take back to my organization so that we can improve. FORCE, the Foundation of Recovery Science and Education. Early on, we'll look and see that outcomes were important to NAATP. They did outcome studies. They talked about outcomes. We have got to do a better job of demonstrating to a healthcare world that what we do works. And FORCE, I believe, is one of the main ways that we will do that. We are in the early days of FORCE, and we're already seeing great results. But I'm excited about what will come with FORCE over time. More and more good things are going to show the effectiveness of treatment and why people need to be engaged in treatment for a proper dosage of the medicine in order to find a pathway of recovery. And so, as I conclude, I want to thank you if you're a member of NAATP. I want to especially thank you if you're a new member of NAATP, and I know we have those today. And if you're not a member of NAATP, I want to invite you to become a member. We need you. We need your voice. We're stronger together than we are alone. There are things that we can do collectively, whether it's advocacy or outcomes, through NAATP that I simply cannot do alone at my center. So I invite you to come, and if all those altruistic things that I talked about with our history are not appealing enough, I'll share another tidbit that I recently learned. One of our largest members of NAATP said the cost of their membership is worth it for the SEO value of being in the addiction industry directory, the AID. So if your primary concern is census, and if you're a CEO, we all suffer from census affective disorder. That's from Bobby, from Jay Walker. I heard it from him, but I steal it and use it a lot. Then join the NAATP because it's going to boost your SEO value. I believe that our best days lie ahead, and I'm excited to learn more here at the conference, and I appreciate you being here.